Humans are terrible at estimating time, but if you want to get better at it, watch this episode. Now, growing up, we'd go out and we'd work on a project. My dad would get home from work and he'd be like, oh, I'm going to work on this little thing. It'll probably take me like 10 minutes. And then he wouldn't even change out of his nice clothes that he wore all day. And he goes out and he starts getting all grimy and slimy. And it's only going to take a minute to get this thing fixed. And a couple hours later, he's all sweaty and dirty and all of his nice clothes are messed up. My sister used to laugh so much about that all the time. And he would just come out and he's like, oh, it won't matter. It'll only take a minute. I won't even get dirty. Without fail, he did. It took forever, way longer than he thought. Same happens to my employees though. They'll go out and be like, hey, how long is it going to take to fix that? Probably about 1 to 2 hours. And then like 8 hours later, it's still not done. I'm like, hey, what happened to the 1 to 2 hours? Well, I wasn't expecting this or planning on that, or this happened, or the customer this. I'm like, well, you've been doing this for years. Why didn't you think about all those things when you gave me the 1 to 2 hours? But I'm just as guilty of it. I was working on a project the other day. I'm looking at it and there's a little fix and I thought, that'll probably take me like half an hour. And literally working on it for hours and hours and hours and it's still not done. I'm like, oh, there's this problem, this problem. There's a couple of ways that you can get better at estimating time. One of them, if you've done that same kind of work before, you just simply need to go back and look at your records. Go in, see how long it took, make a list, all the times I've done it, here's all the time entries. Then you're going to take and you're going to know the smallest amount of time it took, the biggest amount of time it took, and then you take the average of it and find where that lands. When you have those 3 data points, you've got a pretty good indication that you know about the range that it's going to take. Now, if you're like, oh, this customer, I know that how they're going to think and they don't care about anything, you're going to move that down to a little bit closer to the not take so long. If it's a really picky customer who's super verbose and they have to talk about everything for 3 days before you ever get any work done, you're moving that to the top end and maybe padding a little bit on the far side. So that's one way that you can do better. Now, what's crazy to me is humans are so bad at estimating time. Grant Cardone was able to write a best-selling book, and all he does in that book is tell us that we're terrible at estimating time. And his whole book, the 10x rule, is there to say we're bad at this and that you should spend 10 times longer than you think when you're going to do some work. So I think it's absolutely astounding. The guy can write a book and the book sells bestseller list and everything, and all he's doing is like, oh, it's going to take 10 times longer than you think it will. So plan that it'll take 10 times longer. That's his whole book. It's a good book too. It's crazy. So that's the second method of getting better at estimating time. You're going to go in, you're going to guess what you think your best amount of time is, and then you're going to double, triple, or 10x it so that you have a bigger padding on the time that you're planning for the work. So speaking of that 10x, the 10x rule, I was looking at my Spotify stats, and the #1 book that listeners of this podcast listened to or read was the 10x rule by Grant Cardone. So that tells me people who are into this podcast are also into Grant Cardone stuff. Now, in that book, he talks about a bunch of different things, tells a ton of stories of his own experiences where he's like, I didn't think it would take nearly as much effort as it did to accomplish what I was going to accomplish. He said he was really bad at estimating. Now, he says anytime you're going to do something, you should immediately plan that it's going to take 10 times more effort than you're expecting. So I'm looking to speak 300 times in the next 12 months. That podcast, on stage, mastermind, all those kind of speaking opportunities. I was looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm wanting to speak 300 times and I reach out to 300 people, they'd all have to say yes for me to get the 300. That's not very realistic. And then I was like, well, probably if I reach out, 1 out of every 3 is going to say yes. So if I want to speak 300, I need to plan 900. So if I was going to Grant Cardone that puppy, I'd say I have to plan to speak, to reach out to 9,000 different opportunities to get my 300. Now, I'm guessing I'm going to be able to get a better ratio than 1 out of every 30. But when I'm first starting, that may be a really good number. That way, if I do reach out to 100 and don't get any opportunities, I'm not disappointed. But if I'm expecting to speak to 300 and I don't plan for maybe 3, 6, 9,000 people that I have to reach out to first, and I get to the 300 mark and I haven't gotten many good opportunities, a lot of people get overwhelmed, disappointed, and give up because they weren't planning for a big enough amount of effort on the upfront. I think that's a major takeaway that people should get from the 10X rule, that book from Grant Cardone. You need to plan whatever you're going to do, plan that it's going to take way more effort than you think. Even if you double it or triple it or Grant Cardone it and 10X the puppy, you need to plan whatever you're going to do. It's going to take 10 times longer, it's going to take 10 times more effort, or 3 times more effort, or 2 times more effort, but just plan. I think it's going to take this, therefore if I think it's going to take 100, I'm going to say 200, or I'm going to say 300, or if I'm going to grant it, I'm going to say 1,000. That way you're not going to be disappointed on the other end of it. You then have a plan in place that if it goes better, you can celebrate. If it doesn't go better, you're still going to give yourself enough runway to be successful. I know a lot of people who think that if they just go out and start a business, they're like, oh, I'm going to have a ton of business, I'm going to have a ton of customers. They don't ever plan that they're going to have to talk to 100 people to get their first customer. And then they talk to 10 or 20 and they're like, oh man, this is no fun anymore. I think I'm going to go back to my day job. A lot of people don't plan for it being hard enough to accomplish what they need to. So if you want to get better at estimating, you're either going to 10X it, 3X it, 2X it, or you're going to take and look at how long it's taken in the past and give yourself the min, the max, the medium, and then estimate based on that how difficult you think it's going to be going forward.